For me, I released that job of education.
That's true.
Released it of educating grown men. That is why I empower women. I always tell women, this is what is best for you. What is best for you? And what decisions can you make to achieve what is best for you? And be honest with yourself.
Karibu.
No way.
Musibire muta. Mwasibye mutya. Amahoro. Agandi. Byaibo. Habari gani? Muraho. Sangonini. Kopango. Odeo. For those of you who are wondering what that was, these are some of the various local greetings found in East Africa's diverse languages. Welcome to She Center, the female podcast, where I dive into the issues and experiences that affect women everywhere. I am your host, Resti Kansime, and I am passionate about creating a safe space for women to share their stories and triumphs. I want to thank you for tuning into my podcast, and I would love for you to join our community and stay connected with us beyond this episode. You can find us on Instagram at _She Center _podcast, and follow us on Facebook at the She Center Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that follow and like button on our social media to be part of the conversation. Happy June. Hey. Welcome to She Center, the female podcast. Today is the 3rd of June, and this is a very, very special day in East Africa, especially in Uganda, where we celebrate Uganda Matters Day. A special shout out to all those people who were able to take a walk to the Matters Shrine. We salute you and we respect your energy. And for those who are coming from a long weekend of traveling and having fun, I hope that you are well rested. And I pray and hope that this episode brings you the energy and positive vibes that you need. I want to thank all my wonderful She Center fam people who are consistently offering a safe space for women to share their stories each week here. If you're new here, I want to extend a warm welcome to you as well. Welcome, Karibu. I hope that you stay and you don't go anywhere. I hope that you can be truly inspired by these wonderful stories, because I truly have been inspired. Because at She Center, we are committed to empowering women by providing a platform for them to share their experiences, and we aim to inspire others to thrive and lead fulfilling lives. So I hope that you become a part of our community. Follow us on social media, stay connected with us. We always have content throughout the week that is focusing on the episode that we talk about. On Monday, we have the topic of the week. We have a short clip video. This is an audio podcast, but I do always put out short clip videos for every guest that I have on the podcast. So I hope that you enjoy your stay. Enough about that. My guest today is Pumla Nabachwa, a name familiar to many Ugandans. You've likely seen her on the popular motherhood show Bump Love 1.0, where she radiates good vibes and a force of nature. Pumla is unapologetically herself. She combines intelligence with a fearless ability to speak her mind. She is deeply committed to bettering the lives of women in Uganda and beyond. When I reached out to Pumla on her social media, she was more than willing to join us and share her empowering story, which speaks volumes about her character, in my opinion. Pumla is also an economist at the Bank of Uganda, and she passionately advocates for women's empowerment. In this part 1 episode, this is a 2-part series, Pumla will share about her journey from a traditional Kiganda upbringing to becoming a confident and influential woman. She discusses how her father's feminist values and her mother's balance of education and traditional roles shaped her outlook on life. Pumla also opens up about her marriage, divorce, and her co-parenting. So listen until the end to hear about her bold and painful decision to donate eggs in the UK. Twice, I must say. This decision, she shares, stemmed from her desire to empower African women struggling with infertility. So get ready to be inspired by Pumla's insights on motherhood, empowerment, and navigating cultural expectations. Tune in and enjoy. So grab your drink, a soda, wine, whatever it is that you're drinking, and just continue listening. I'll talk to you at the end. Bye for now. Hi, Pumla. How are you doing?
Look, I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Rusty?
I'm good. It's very nice to have you on the She Center podcast. And we've spoken before the recording, and I'll just give you like a short intro of everything so you have an idea what kind of audience you're speaking to. I have this vision, like I told you, like political science, be a Ghana. I am deciding to make the change, be the change. So, as a master's in political science student, I have always had this, I grew up in I wouldn't say middle class, because I had relatives in all classes. Like I know relatives who are like rich, middle class, poor, like real poverty. So I have grown up with that thing of relating to everyone. Okay. Like I feel like I relate to everyone. I understand when someone says like from the rich people, like, yeah, the poor don't just get it. Or when from the poor, they're like, yeah, we're struggling. So coming from that perspective, my goal has always been to create change that I want. Yeah. And after doing my master, I was like, okay, it's either you go back to Uganda, do a PhD, this. I was like, okay, PhD, I don't know. Let me, before I decide what I want to do, I'm very passionate about what happened to me as an individual. Yeah. So I got back into my, 2020 moment of you're alone, life has hit you, isolation. I'm like, God, what happened to me really? So I go back into those things and I start writing down like, bullying in school, all these things. And I start to find myself, like this for me came from a religious point of view. I found myself in that space of, okay, everything has happened probably for a reason. Like if I take out just this one aspect of my life, I don't think I would be who I am right now. So I started to get to that point where I was like, okay, if I went through this and I know how it has affected my life moving forward or how it has strengthened me, how about I try to help people who are going through it and collect other women who are going through different things, who have gone through different things, to say, okay, this is what I went through, this is what I learned from it. So I came up with the idea to build an online platform. We are going digital in Africa. And I know, like, every time I tell people digital platform, they're like, Rusty, those things we don't get. Like, do you mean YouTube? I'm like, no, not YouTube. A website where you can find things that help women. Or like, do people read? I'm like, we can figure this out. And I know podcasts are the new thing right now. People are not listening to TV or radio as much. They're like, they're on the go. I need something on my phone. So I said, before I do start the website, I need to, like, I do know what I think women need in Uganda, or East Africa rather. But what I want to do is to find out if what other people's stories say the same thing that mine says. Because I used my own life and I did like a focus group discussion to talk to women, asking them. Even the name She Center came from a focus group discussion. We asked, like, what do you think an online platform should need, like inclusion and all these things, understanding. I was like, okay, now I need to back it up with some research. Yeah. So basically, these interviews I'm having are like an in-depth interview of different women from on different ages for me to understand that at the end of the day, when this website is up, and I'm talking to people why it is necessary, I will be like, okay, I talked to a certain number of people in this age group. This is what they said they needed at the time when they were at that age. And this is why we need this kind of platform. So I said to myself, there are people who have interviewed relatives. I need to go out and find people who I know who are specialized in different things. Like, I think many people who listen to Bump Love or who have, I think I also listened to this podcast, what is it called? Where you are with this guy.
PPJ.
What the Theory. Yeah, PPJ, yes, What the Dear Joel. Yeah, I was listening to that. So I'm guessing like people have heard you talk a lot and you have opinions about different things. So I'm interested in different opinions, but also in people who are young to look up and be like, now, how did Pumla get to be the Pumla that we see? Like, what happened to Pumla? And so I like to ask the question, please tell us about your childhood, moving up to, where you are right now, leading up to your life right now, how you think it might have impacted the person that you are right now, and how you see this world.
Okay. Thank you, Rusty.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me here. I don't necessarily go speaking everywhere I'm invited or asked to speak, because I have to first get a sense that your belief system or your values or your impact at the end of the day or your objective is aligned to mine. And I like that I felt that, there seemed to be some sort of alignment in what you're trying to do. I'm a woman's woman, and I like, I'm a humans person. I'm a people person, but I tend to be biased more towards women, mostly because I realized that I think I stand at a point of privilege. So I used to think that every woman was as empowered as I was. Every person should be as empowered as I am. Until I realized that, no, everybody has their own stories. I started to speak to people. So I lived, you introduced me, I don't have to introduce myself, right?
No, you can introduce yourself still. It's much better from your mouth.
Pumla. I'm Pumla Nabachwa. I serve as an economist with the Bank of Uganda. I'm here in Kampala. And I'm really passionate about providing people, mostly women, with tools to help them make better decisions for themselves.
Yes.
I'm a mom to a teenage son. He's 14, turning 15 this year. And I felt like for every part of his milestones, I have seen myself change as a human being, because he's woken parts of my brain, I think, that have allowed me to question and ask questions and wonder, because of the way we raise children these days is a little more liberal. We allow them to express themselves, to think. So when I hear him say things, he says things that I thought in my mind years ago, but I was not allowed to say out loud. Not as freely. My home was a free space, kind of, but still hinged heavily on traditionalism. So I come from a real typical traditional conservative background of my tribe, which is Uganda, which is Kiganda. And I was kind of raised that way, and yet not so much. So I used to think, wherever you go, you think that you're being raised by the strictest until you find others. So I realized when I grew later that my home was actually quite progressive. And this is really because I was allowed to listen to stories of other women. And when I put myself in spaces, I'm sheltered. I'm not like you. Like, as we grew up, typical middle income home. But exposed to people in a wealthy class. And even if we saw the life of those of low income status, we didn't spend enough time in there to really get a feel or understanding of who they were. I only literally started to understand different status groups in my adulthood as I grew older. No, maybe campus, because that's when we went to uni, we were people from all walks of life. Yeah. So when people ask me, the question I have got the most in my life, in my adulthood, is, how are you so confident? How are you able to just speak and say? And for me, it used to blow my mind why women did not. I'd always be like, you have a brain, it works, right? You have a mind of your own, right? So why aren't you saying what you want to say to who you want to say it to? And then I realized that that's why women have a big culture of gossiping and talking behind other people's backs, because we were culturally socialized not to speak out loud. And yet,
that's true.
Our thoughts have to go somewhere. They must.
Oh, so we just find like a corner.
Rusty is behaving a certain way, and I'm not allowed to tell Rusty directly, or I'm not told how to tell Rusty to express myself. I'm going to find somebody else to talk to about Rusty. And who am I going to find?
I've never thought about it in that way.
I surround myself with. You'll find that in more developed countries, there is not much this gossip that happens within women. It's more in the developing world, much more in that whole backstabbing, because you're not allowed to speak out. Women are not really allowed to speak out. When you do, they call you aggressive. And women like to be liked. They don't want people to call them names, especially men.
True.
They don't like men to call them names. Like me, I don't care. If you tell me, that's on you. I just found myself always in a place of, why do I have an I don't give an F attitude? And I also had to go back into my life story to think, what about my story do I hear separates me
from
from many other women?
Yeah.
And I literally found it to be my father. My father was the first feminist I ever knew.
Wow.
It's so strange that from a generation of men that wanted women to be a certain way is literally where when I look back, I have gone back into my life to find out. I used to think it was my mom, because my mom's a strong-willed woman. She's strong. My mom has a PhD. She's very highly academic and she's really intelligent, and she's expresses herself. She speaks her mind. Needs to work on her delivery, but she's really like, she's a force. Like, she's a force of a woman, especially in a time when women were not really allowed to do what they wanted. And then my mom used to tell me stories about her father. And I was sure, I was like, you know what? I get this from my mom, because her father allowed her. There was a time in the past where women had to be allowed. Like, you can't say it now, but even now, because men have power, people who have power must allow you to be a certain way, because you don't have anything. It's like children. Children don't really have power, but if they grow up in homes where people allow them to do things, they will. It allows you to open a certain part of your brain to think more. When I grew and went back, and I realized that no, every time people speak, they speak about their mothers, how audacious they were, how strong they were, how great they were. But why am I still different? And I found the answer in my father. My father grew up in poverty, typical poverty that for me he didn't expose us too much. And then he was raised mostly, and then his parents died when he was much younger. So he reached a point in his education where he grew up among sisters. So there were really many girls in the house, and he grew up at the tail end. So he grew up with women, and at a certain point in his education, because they were in school he was going to school at a time when women's education was less relevant than men's. His sisters had to drop out of school for him to continue. So when he continued, he grew up among women, and it not only allowed him, switched on that empathetic button, but it also allowed him to be more aware of women, more aware of the plight of women. And you know, there's two kinds of people. There's people who experience things, and because they have gone through those experiences, they'll come back and want you to also go through those same experiences.
Yes.
Negative experiences. True. And then there are people who have gone through
who make
the
change,
shittest of the shit, and are like, no.
Yeah,
no
we need
one
to do
must
better.
go through what I went through. Let me make it
That's
better
true.
for these people. So my dad's always been the latter of, let me make life easier for these people. And he's always had an empathetic self. And that's why I didn't think I was like my dad. I'm not as empathetic as him. Like, I don't naturally gravitate towards empathy. I'm usually like tough love of, no. You are your problems, you know? Like, get up and, woman up.
Sort yourself.
Sort yourself up. Like, change your mindset to think, make better decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
My dad literally tries to get people from, like, literally the roots and carry them and help them and make them better. So I always, like, what's wrong with you?
Takes patience.
Problems. He's so patient and so tolerant and so inclusive and so, he has a soft, sensitive side that I don't really have innately. I literally had to kind of grow and train my muscles so that I can, relate better with people, but also doing it healthily. I find my dad like a little bit extreme sometimes. So when I realized that, so he grew. So when my dad grew up, I think that button stayed switched on in him. And when he raised daughters, so I'm the second born of 5 children. And my brother is the firstborn. My only brother is the firstborn ahead of me. So my dad, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, he literally, our parents, the relationships we have with our parents are the earliest. They are the most powerful, but the most complex. And the more complex relationship is that between a child and their opposite sex parent. That's the most complex relationship you ever find. Moms and their sons, dads and their daughters.
Yeah.
My dad and I had a typical, because as a firstborn girl, we had a typical dads and their daughters relationship. People didn't understand how I was able to control him. He was a very strict man, very strict. But when it came to me, something would happen. And I saw it, and I took advantage of it each and every time. My dad, he had a belief, like the way he raised us. So, and this is a thing with dads and their daughters, like your father is like your first identity to manhood. He's the first man you experience.
Yes,
your dad literally sets, they create a subconscious roadmap for the partner you find yourself with. That's why you find people tending to, generationally, tending to unhealthy partners.
Yes,
because
that's true.
of the father they had.
They
Women usually who are brought up with absent fathers, you'll find tend to hook up with absentee men as well. And then you always wonder, but you saw this in your family. Why are you gravitating towards it? Because the brain tends to go where it's familiar, to territory it knows. It usually speaks to you and says, better where I know and understand than the unknown. The brain is so afraid of the unknown until you get into your mind and show it that no. We are not doing that. We are breaking these decisions. Then women who have grown up with present, and when I say present, physically, emotionally, doing what he needs to do in the home as a father, they tend to look for men who are like that.
Right. Exactly.
So that relationship is never questioned when women are looking towards healthy relationships. But it's always questioned when women are looking towards toxic relationships. But the science is the same. It stays the same. So I had always wondered why I had girlfriends of mine who tended to perpetually enter wrong bad boy relationships and keep doing it until I started to do the research, and I'd always go back to where they came from, what their mothers lived through. You'd see someone and it seems like
it's
their
normal.
household was healthy
and
stable and normal.
Yes,
but when you start to ask the right questions,
yeah,
then you get answers. You get the
that's
right
very
answers.
true.
Like,
That's very you look for what's familiar. You look for what's familiar. Like,
you
this is how
tend to
family
look for
is. This is how everything
is it.
should be.
That
Yeah.
is it. Because your brain
Yeah.
thinks I'm more comfortable. I've been here before. I know how to work towards this. I'm alive.
Yeah.
We have survived.
Yes.
It makes you think you've survived. So because my dad has always been, he's very, very present, and he does everything men are supposed to do. He allows you subconsciously he sets a standard for how you will be treated. Full stop. And this is not just with men, but with your community as well. Men literally, or your opposite sex parent sets the standard for how you look at what love is. Because at the end of the day, human beings were built for connection. And at the center of connection is love. So how you perceive love, if you look at love like a threat, like something that could be slipped out under you like a rug, you'll be fearful. You always live your life in survival mode. So I never lived in survival mode. And when I found people who were living their lives to survive, they really like baffled me.
You're like, what's up?
Like that. Like, why? Why can't you just accept love? Why would you behave in such a way until you go back to what their life stories were?
For you came from security, like you were secure.
Yeah. If you come from a place of security, you'll never understand people who come from a place of anxiety. And people of anxiety are always looking at you like, how do you do that? How do you just exist? And
you have superpowers, Banange, Pumla.
Yeah, is it? But a lot of it comes from how you are raised. So I know for a fact that my father had a lot to do with the confidence I have, the value, the self-worth that I have, and the esteem that I have. So, and you see, not to say that just because you grow up in a different kind of home environment doesn't mean that now, okay, am broken. I must always admit to people that I had a head start. But after a certain point, I'm the work. I do the work because I've seen people who have been raised the exact same way that I've been raised.
Yeah, but they come out
to
with,
behave different later. Like you can find something along your path, your journey, which kills everything that your parents helped you, to build.
Exactly.
And I've found people who were raised in the most unstable and unhealthy places, and came out
they
of their shows and
intentionally,
realized, no,
yes,
this is not what I want for myself. This is not what
it's a
I want
battle
for
you
my life.
fight. That's very
And
true.
they
That
moved.
what you've said is very true.
Yeah.
And I think from what you've explained, like it's literally describing what happened to you, because what happened to you, I don't know if you've read the book with Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey.
No,
They are talking about how, like, from 0 to 5 years old, this guy is like, parents usually ignore that the biggest, like, this is the hugest impact on a child. 0 to 5 years old. You know how in Uganda they're always like, like you forget that the child doesn't know anything from 0 to 5 years old.
True.
But I literally, up to now, like, I have this really sharp memory. There are times when I look at my mom and I say, I remember when this happened. I don't remember, like, it's blurry. Exactly. I have a gift of remembering, like, I have a good memory, but also I remember how I felt. And I think that's the most important thing for these children in this age. Yeah. So what you're saying is, like, if you grow up and your father makes you feel worthy, you don't have to go around proving I am worthy. You are worthy. But I recently learned the difference between self-worth and self-confidence. Many of us are walking around feeling confident, but inside, I'm walking around, I'm like, but do people really, like, am I confident? I have to prove it on the outside, but on the inside, you're like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I am worthy. So that means you work 100 times harder. And in many cases, it is visible to the people, only those who have self-worth. But for others who are hustling like you, they'll be like, man, we are confident. So what you've described right now is you're not confident. Like, it's not just about your confidence. You are, like, you know yourself. When man, like, okay, I know I have listeners who are not Baganda. You know yourself. You know who you are, where you come from, and even if someone came and tried to disentangle whatever is happening up here, your foundation is set on, I am worthy of love, I'm worthy of all these things. And I think that's I wanted to highlight that because I feel like that's very important for not only mothers to know, but for also some of us who didn't have this foundation to grow up and be like, okay, if this person is like this, what can I learn from their experience? What have they done? What happened in their life that I can also try to implement in mine by being intentional? Yeah. So, so how was growing up as, firstborn girl? Baganda, Banange, that tribe. I remember when we were growing up in the West, they would tell us, Abaganda, when you marry a Muganda, get ready to kneel down while peeling, do all these things. So please tell us about this childhood of being a Muganda firstborn girl.
You see, I see people these days, people like on Instagram and TikTok, people in the Western world, in the more developed world, speak about firstborn girls and deputy parents. You don't know what it is to be a firstborn girl in a home, in a Kiganda household. Typical. And you see, your condition, like, you think that what's going on is normal. So this is it. Back order at the end of the day, it doesn't matter in what culture you've been raised. It sets you, it like paves a path for your development and your personality. Always. Like, you will find not 100%, but more qualities in firstborn children that are similar, and similar characteristics in middle children, similar characteristics in lastborn children. So as I said before, my family was strict and yet progressive. We were typically Baganda, like we were brought up with Baganda. My parents' friends were mostly Baganda as well. So us, we knew that what's in our culture is ordinary, is normal. So I've had a few other people say, for us, our parents, we were all treated the same, girls or boys. But even if my family was progressive, I literally am aware of the fact that I was treated different from my brother merely by the fact of my gender, full stop. Us, we were raised, I was raised in the kitchen, literally in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Even when I had school. So this is a different thing, because again, my parents were really highly academic. For them, you first settle your books, put your books in order, your academics in order. So there was that dance they used to do that. But my brother literally would come to the kitchen for vibes, to give us KB, just to, have conversations and just talk and then
to monitor.
Yeah, and you see, when I
and
tell
to
my
test,
mom, she literally does not remember. When you ask my mom will tell you, no, I treated my children all the same. Like,
subconsciously.
No. How is it that your son doesn't know how to cook a meal, doesn't know how to cook anything? How?
That's true.
My brother, even when he left home, I had to go to his home to prepare for him breakfast. I'm younger than him, but
did you feel like, did he ask you, or did you just feel responsible?
He said something. Yeah, he didn't tell me, Pumla, come and prepare for me. No, he said something that made me realize that he had no real food in the house.
And you were like, no, this can't be.
Yeah, and then his girlfriend of at that time was Munyarwanda.
They cook for them.
And not to cause wars here, but being a Muganda girl and a Munyarwanda girl are two different people.
There's a huge difference.
There's a huge difference, because for us, we are real trained to look after our men, and that's the thing with Kiganda. Baganda girls are literally trained to take care of their men. And the firstborns are always taught to take care of families. So that's it. That's all, and then you have this balance you have to do. You're growing up in a family that says, no, you must strive to excel, you must succeed, you must become an independent woman. But also, while you do that, you must remember that you have to take care
cook
of these people. You have to cook, you have to clean, you have to do laundry, you have to satisfy these other people. And then from then, I was taken through to Gayaza High School. Gayaza High School, for those of you who know it, your listeners from Uganda, was typically a traditional school for princesses, for women who are being trained to become wives of established men. Of established, and in Buganda, establishment is a Muganda man. Anyway. So Gayaza High School and King's College Budo were made to be sister and...
here kings, here princess.
These guys were real made to be kings. The Gayaza girl was not meant to be a queen. They will tell you to act like a queen, but like a queen in the sense that you represent your man in this way, that he will be, that the people will look at him and say, yes, that is the
he
right
has a
woman
good wife.
for that man. He has a good wife. That's it.
Wow.
So even if I'm aware of the birth order, regardless of culture, I'm also aware that the home I grew up in, and it's not easy for me. I didn't see this until much later. Now everybody's grown and you're still behaving, treating your siblings like their children. And I think it's the youngest sister of mine who one day called me out on it and said, you know what, I can do what I want to do. Last borns again, because of birth order issues, last borns are they're more expressive, they're more outspoken, because I think you've heard the saying that no two children are raised by the same parent. Now the biggest distinction is between the firstborns and the lastborns.
And
firstborn children are raised by anxious parents, uncertain parents who are just starting out in life, who are just navigating, parents who are already not trying to, the first years of marriage are the hardest. So you're raised by parents who are trying to figure it out, not only in life, but also within the home. Lastborn children usually come at a time when the parents are more secure, they have a little bit more money, they are more grounded, they are more firm in their relationship and also in their life goals. They are more established, so they allow the lastborn children to do what. So you find lastborn children are usually more creative because they've not been raised in survival. Firstborn kids are usually raised, we are in this thing to survive. And then it's like you run experiment, they don't know what to do. By the time the thirdborn reaches, they already give you that thirdborn
it's okay.
Milk,
I've shouted and shouted, it's okay, do you?
I'm done. And these kids haven't died. So the rest of you will be okay. So you'll find that the way lastborn
that's true.
Their minds are more open. They do what they want. They can because they've been allowed to. And yet firstborns were never allowed to do anything. You literally have to fight your way for your independence. And even now, that's how they look at us. Like when I even go home, my mother expects me to behave,
To
would
be in
be
the
more
kitchen.
disappointed in me if I behaved different. But if my younger sisters did the exact same thing, there's no consequences. Like, you don't see that feeling of, hey, how could you do that? You know, right? And
Yes.
to keep peace, you just live your life like that. You continue. So I remember when my sister told me one time, no, I'm a grown person. I've had this change for a while. This is who I've now become. You must treat me like this. And then when I went back and realized, oh my God, I still look at her like she's like
A baby.
child, like a
Yeah.
baby. I shouldn't. She's a grown woman, you know. She's had sex, for crying out loud. Legal sex. Doesn't release her. So yeah, I think for me it was mostly, but I've stayed like that. Even like now in the relationships that I've had, I've still taken that Kiganda raising. But you see, for me, I don't have a problem with it. It's when people highlight it, is when I'm like, okay. So there's things that I've realized are regressive that I'm not doing. Like I remember when I got married, my son's father, my ex-husband, was from a different tribe. He was from the Western culture, and for him, how he was raised is that boys and girls work together.
They help each other. Yes.
Yeah, they help each other. But I used to feel like he was in my space, like he was just not allowing
Like,
me
please
to do
stop
what I
helping
wanted
me.
to do. Yeah, like stop. I didn't see it as help. I saw it like as a disturbance. But when I thought about it more after, and this is even like after the relationship has ended and everything, I was like, you know what? That help is actually good. I'm more relaxed after when someone comes to the kitchen and is asking to help me cut tomatoes or peel the potatoes. I find I'm more relaxed after. I don't need to take an hour to nap later because I'm tired from this. If we are both doing this together, it's great. So I had to unlearn certain things later and relearn others. So I can now see like there's a balance. There are those which I've failed, like I'm like, you know what? It's causing me problems, but it is who I am. I'm aware of it. The self-work is not happening as fast as it should. I've released them. But there are those where I've seen that, no, this is regressive. And it came to you because of your birth order and the home you grew up in. But you can release it. If somebody else is there to help, give you a helping hand, why not? You know, like, why not do it? Baganda,
I have a question.
Weakness.
Did you ever find a collision between your character and your traditional beliefs and what you were, because like what you're describing is Pumla. Like in my head, I'm like, Pumla, as a traditional Muganda girl, like this, you sound like the Pumla who says, Sha, you can also cook, can't you? We both can do this and all this, but what you're describing, and I'm like, I can't see it. Like, I can't see that Pumla. And also, did you ever find yourself in maybe relationships where you're married or you're in a relationship with someone who is from the same tribe as you? And do you find yourself, okay, I've tried this side where they've helped me, now I'm expecting you to help me? Or was it always like, okay, I have to compartmentalize my head and be like, okay, now I'm with a Westerner, I need to expect help from them. I'm with a Muganda, I need to give some help. How do you juggle this life of being a Muganda? Because, man, me, some things I'm like, I went to a Buganda school in Buganda, and the things they taught us, I would always be like, my mom would be like, guys, we don't do that stuff. But there's that pressure where in school they would tell us, if you don't do this, you won't be a good wife. But now that I'm looking back, I'm like, I was 10. Where were they preparing me for marriage? So how's that balancing of being an outspoken person, confident, self-worth, to being the person of, I can take care of a man? How has that been balanced in your life?
Well, I think it's Rachel. Rachel was a co-host of mine on Bumpla. And I think she's the one who ousted me out. And she said, she told people that this guy, she comes to you to teach empowerment and feminism and all those things, how women should be independent. But when she goes home,
at home,
hey, that cap that she came with, she removes it.
She takes
those
it
boots,
off. Oh my
puts
God.
them off. That crown, she leaves it outside and she goes and serves her man.
Wow.
And you know what? I saw like from my other sisters that they don't do that. My sister, so the sister who comes after me is married to a German. And she had always said, right from when we were kids, she told my father at a dinner table once that I will never ever marry an African man. If they all behave like this, I'll never marry a man that is there to be served. And I looked at her, I was like, yeah, this girl.
What are you
but
saying?
She was serious. And
Oh my God.
Yeah, she said, no. If we are going to be in the home, we must be working together. I can't be there slaving. And the man is just, yet we both work and provide income for the household. It's not ever going to happen. Actually, she said, even if we are not working, I'm not providing, but I will make sure that I can do some provision so that I don't have to work. But because, again, and I think that's one of the things that I can admit to, was conditioning on my part. But I feel like it was a positive conditioning, honestly. So I think it depends on your perspective and how you look at it. I have found that, like my ex-husband was from the Western culture, but right now I'm dating the first Muganda man I've ever been with. And you see, like, it was a reject. It was a thing of, I saw also what was happening in my home. My dad was literally king, and my mom was doing all sorts to make it work. Remember I said my mother's a PhD. But my mother,
I know, right?
Hey, my mother treats her husband like a king. And her king treats her like a queen. But it is clear that treatment of queenship is conditional. But so I always felt that this woman who is clever, highly intelligent, highly read, highly exposed, there must be something in this formula that works.
Yeah.
And what I realized, the simple maths at the root was that we all want peace. All of us, men and women, they like to say men like peace, but both men and women like peace. So I started to realize, what is this thing that gives these people peace? And what is it that I can do that still keeps me happy and okay and grounded? And I realized that doing for my man makes him happy.
And it gives you peace of mind.
A happy man makes me happy. When we are both happy, the home is happy. Why would I fight such a winning formula? Why? Why would I go to women and tell them, no, the man must do this for you? Yet that's going to cause struggle and warfare in your home. Me, by the way, my focus has always been, I know for a fact that women need men and men need women. We need each other, literally. Don't let anyone ever lie to you that as an island, you're fine with your girlfriends or alone as an individual. It's not true. We were created different in this world for a reason. Because there are unique characteristics I have as a woman that I bring to the table, and there are unique characteristics that men have that in no world can I do naturally or innately. Unless, of course, there is an exception where you find that the hormones are not, you have more hormones as a woman sometimes, that more testosterone or more male hormones, it happens, and you find even that there are men who have more feminine side because more about the hormones, the biology. But that's a different bracket, and that's a minority. But generally, men and women bring different unique characteristics to the table. And I have found in the time, because I have lived in a home where where there was fight between myself and my son's father, and then I've also lived an independent life with my child, and I loved my single life. I loved my single life, and then I found myself again in a healthy relationship that chose me, and I saw that difference. That fine, I can live my life singly and independently and still be happy and fulfilled, but I will always admit that when I have a partner who is good for me, who is happy,
it helps,
who allows our environment to be healthy and conducive for the both of us to thrive, a partner who has my best interests at heart, it is definitely better than the single life that I lived, the single independent life that I lived. But there's nothing wrong with being single. There's nothing wrong with being independent. You can be happy and thrive. But we must admit that if you'd rather be there if you've not found somebody, or if somebody has for whom
who is for you,
each other,
exactly.
If you haven't found people for you, you'd rather be single and independent, because also a bad relationship, there's nothing worse for your mind, there's nothing worse for your heart than a bad partner.
True. That's
so
true.
I have always found that if I found the person who was right and healthy for me, why wouldn't I apply this formula which does not take from me? I have found women for whom this takes, And that's okay. That's fine. But you must find a partner who understands and is accepting of that. You can't come and we can teach, but I've always felt that why don't you choose partners who are easier to be with? Why don't you choose partners who are easier to apply those things? You get a Muganda man from Nakwe, you get a Muganda man from Rakai, and then you come and tell him to remove all the knowledge his mother told him, and you tell him, no. We are both in the kitchen cooking. Yeah. We are both cleaning. We are both.
There's a lot of friction in that.
I don't know. Is it your job to educate? For me, I released that job of education. I released it of educating grown men. That is why I empower women. I always tell women, this is what is best for you. What is best for you? And what decisions can you make to achieve what is best for you? And be honest with yourself. Because much as we've been conditioned by a generation, by a regressive generation, there is also socializing of a current generation that maybe does not always know what is best for them. And then you go around walking, saying, no. These men, they must do this, they must do that. But there's a reason that started as it did. All we need to do is find the progressive out of it. If it's not for you, go to Germany, go to the UK, go to the
and
US,
get your man there.
A Muzungu man who has already been trained and taught that we are two halves and we can both do 50%. Find your other
that's
people.
very true.
Because, and this is another thing, I've met men also who don't want to see their women, who look at what these African women are doing as suffering. I found them, African men. So go and find them.
I was at the university here and I told my friends, like, I told a friend of mine, you wouldn't survive in Uganda. And then she was like, because I was telling her, first of all, I was telling her things like, I would tell them like, how is the outing like, going out? You're like, us, when we go out back home, it's really cheap for us girls, when we're around and there's a boy, they buy the drinks. And they're like, is it because Ugandan girls don't have money? I'm like, no, we literally, like, you can have the money in your pocket, but the guy, like, it's like, they buy the drinks. And then she's like, that's weird. So I told her, and then also from when we are young, we are trained to take care of the, the home and everything. Like, we are properly trained to be women. And she said, I don't think I want to come to Uganda. Like, I don't think I'll ever marry a Muganda. But that what you've said is so, and it sets so many people free to know. Because I do understand, yes, when you're single, and sometimes you're really like, man, this guy is the one who is available at the moment. But it's very good for you to know when you're choosing the partner that what you're getting yourself into. Because I don't know if maybe some men hide these characters when they are dating. They make it seem like, I will cook, I will do this. But I feel like it's always present. Like, you always see from the beginning. Okay, maybe because people go eating out. So you never really see someone in a home setting. By the time you get married, you're like, wait, I thought we'll be, sharing, because you didn't experience that part of him, like in a home setting. But I think it sets so many women free for you to know what to expect in marriage, especially during the the relationship part of it, the dating relationship part of it. When you see, oh no, this is a Muganda. Am I ready for this? No. Then let me get out of this. But if I am willing, then at least let me try. But also, Anange, can't the men try to,
They should.
They all go to King's College over.
But is it your job? If you decided to make it your job, to teach them and train them to be better, then that is your msalaba.
It's frustrating.
But you have to know
frustrating,
it's an uphill task, and it's a frustrating one. And that's why you
it should come naturally.
Unhappy. And that's why for me, I focus on women, I focus on mothers, and I mostly focus on mothers raising sons. I have so many lessons when I'm speaking to sons. My son hangs out with a group of boys, and they come to my home often. And those boys also go to these other people's homes often. But our values are the same. Because this generation is gone. We are sorry about it. What can we do? It's not my job.
Gen Z is Gen Z.
So do better by your sons, so that your daughters don't struggle. Your daughters don't suffer. Me, it's not my job. True. I know people who have taken it upon themselves to fight these battles and make men behave like I'm like, if that's your battle, you do it. For me, I know.
Man,
what
that's
an uphill
peace.
task
That's
it
not
is.
peace.
I
Yeah,
like
it's a
good
struggle.
life. I like my life soft. I like my life peaceful. And I've realized that fighting that battle takes away from me. So
Yeah,
for you, if it
that's very
doesn't
true.
take away from you, please go ahead and do it. But I'm not doing it. I chose the other route, and that route is to empower men, to empower women, to allow women to know what is good for them and be honest with themselves when they're making those decisions, so that they
That's
can
true.
make better decisions, so that their
Yeah.
lives can be better. Men,
Yes, and through
that's
that
not my
they
job.
impact the children, because it starts from when you are a child. Like you
That is
said,
it.
if you're empowering a woman who has a son,
is it.
how you're going to act with your husband or partner when you have a son is exactly how your child is going to grow up looking at
That is
marriage. You're like, you know what? My mom did this. I literally met an Egyptian here, and he told me, my mom, like him, he said, I told him, you seem to be looking to marry your mom. And he's like, yes, I have dated so many people. None of them are like this. I'm like, you seem to really have this specific mindset
Yeah.
of, I need a woman who is going to do this and this and this for me. So just go back to Egypt. I told him, just go back to Egypt, and maybe you find someone who was trained in that way. Because here, man, Germany, it's limited to find such women. People like empowerment and all that stuff. And even I see in many cases, like, I am finding very many Nigerians are going after Ugandans.
Yep.
And I met a Nigerian guy, and the guy told me, I don't know how true it is. I always tell this to people when I met them, like Nigerians. And the guy, we were at like a train station, and he greeted me. And I said hi back with a smile. And he asked me, are you from East Africa? I'm like, yes. He's like, how do you know? He's like, my dear, us, our sisters, so the sisters from Nigeria, they don't treat us, when they see us, they just want to like probably spit on us or something. But there's a way you East Africans treat us like human beings and something. And I refused. I said, that's not true. Maybe it's because, you're just standing on the train station greeting everyone, sister. So eventually he said, you know what, stand with me here and you see, let's test it out. So I had some time, I stood with him. And literally every time someone would be coming, he's smiling at them, and he would tell me, that one is from Nigeria. And the person would pass with this look of, like before they even say hi to you, you're already like feeling really agitated. I don't know if they also know themselves. Maybe I was like, maybe it's the men in Nigeria. And then every time someone would coming smiling, and the guy would be like, hello, sister, and they would smile, he'd be like, that person is definitely from East Africa. And you would always hear either Swahili or something like that. And I was like, something about, I think even when you're describing Baganda, maybe because like, it's, you guys are like predominantly, like you're the majority. And we all, like majority of us go to school in Buganda, There's that impact that the Buganda kingdom has had on us. Like me, for example, who is a Mtoro, pure, born, pure, everything. Why do I feel the need to always be that that woman who is like this? It could be because of the Bible, but also from the time I was 7 in boarding school, I also went to a traditionally Buganda school where they were teaching us marriage. You have to do this for your husband. You have to do this for your husband. And I feel like majority of us Ugandans have this mindset of Baganda without even knowing. Like we don't know that we are acting like Baganda in our heads, unless you meet someone who is directly from maybe Fort Porto or from Bara, like they grew up and they were raised there, then they might have a different mindset. So it's quite interesting to know that our culture even like goes beyond Africa. Like people can see us and be like, that person is from Uganda.
But Batoro are one of Ugandan's best kept secret. I got introduced to Batoro in my adulthood. And I found that we were just trained different, but the goal was the same. Batoro is a tribe in Uganda that women have been trained to please their men, to make their men happy. We just go about it different. So I found in Uganda, because I was also telling people the same thing, that no, people like Ugandans, but it's not really Ugandans. They meet a lot of Baganda. Because Baganda are the ones who usually go abroad to do cheyo, to do all those things. They're the ones who originally started going abroad to do all those cheyo things and whatever. And when you find those Baganda women, you think that all Ugandans are like that. I always tell them, you go to Kabale. You tell me. what you find that
You find the man in the kitchen. You're right.
Yeah,
You're right. But
and the
yeah,
best
we
thing
were
is
trained like that.
when I was in the UK, when I was doing my masters, I dated a Nigerian guy for a bit there.
Oh, he must have been the happiest.
Yeah, he was. We both made each other happy until he became too possessive, so I had to release him. But I remember there are people that we would go around, like when we would go to like parties or things, we would go and there would be Nigerian girls, and the Nigerian girls would look at me and always tell me that I behave like a slave, like women should make men fight for them. Like you should always make men think you're the prize, not that they are the prize. And then I saw that that was the difference in our upbringing.
In the mindset, yes,
in Nigeria,
yes.
women are the prize, while in Buganda, they make it seem like men are the prize.
Yeah,
but if you both look at each other like the prize, so this is what was happening when I dated a Nigerian. He looked at me like the prize, and I looked at him like the prize.
Yeah.
So our relationship was really great because we both looked at each other like we were prizes. And if you have a prize, you want to keep that prize clean and happy and nice, and you put it up for everybody to see. So if you're both worshipping each other, you have the best relationship. The problem is back home here is that we are worshipping the man, so we find ourselves frustrated and
like you don't want to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to do it.
It's like
you
they
don't
forced
want to
you.
do it because it seems now like a chore, like I'm doing this to serve a king. But if that king treats you like a queen, that's why I always go back to my parents' relationship. My dad literally treats his wife like a queen, and my mom
that's
literally treats her husband like a king. So if you can find someone for who will treat you like a queen, why wouldn't you want to treat them like a king? That's like has always been my perception. I tell them those men you're with are just the wrong men. That's why you don't want to do for
They're
them.
not for you.
They're not for you. Yeah, and I think that's
But I think it's also like this, like you said, women who are not empowered have this side hustle of let's gossip. There's that feeling like, because I remember like when we were in at campus, when you'd see that, you know, those girls who just act like, yes, for them they went to Gayaza. There's a way when you're coming from a different perspective, you're always looking at them like they are suffering, like you said, and you like, and then if this person like overpowers your mindset, then you find yourself going back into your relationship where you were actually happy doing things, doing things for your man and seeing him like the king and everything, and then these people come and tell you, have you tried this? Refuse this. And you find that now you've interrupted someone's, family. But there are some people who are just happy serving others. And you're coming in telling them, empowerment, don't do it. And you find that you've actually ruined this relationship because this girl now goes home and there's no food. And now the man is like, dude, you've gotten me used to this lifestyle and there's some change that's happening. Let's just... So I'm trying now, as you're speaking, I'm remembering so many people I used to also tell these things. But anyways, like you said, I think it's important for you to know who you're marrying and what you can do as an individual. Like, what are you willing to sacrifice or what are you willing to do? But anyways, besides all these traditional things, so we've talked about your firstbornship and your expectations in the family, and you mentioned something about the UK. There's something I'm interested in for you to share about that I find very... Given the person that you are empowered and you like to empower others. And for me, after listening to your story about the donating of the eggs, I felt like, okay, if I just listened to the story knowing just a mere Pumla, I would be like, why did she do something like this? But listening to your values and your beliefs, it makes sense why something like this can be done. So can you please share about this and what really drove you to feel like, okay, you know what, I know you've shared this story before. For those who haven't yet listened on the podcast, you can share about this and also maybe speak about it at large, like this whole reproductive issue that's going on, because it's becoming such a big problem in our African continent. I recently asked a friend, I was like, I never hear anyone here talk about fibroids and all these things, like stopping them from having kids, but back home almost like 1 out of 5 of my friends is telling me I'm struggling with fibroids. And then it turns out that it's not a common thing in white people. It's common in Africa. So I guess right now we are having a lot of reproduction issues in our African continent. Can you please share about your experience from this? Because I know by the time you made that decision, you had done research. You look like those kinds of people who like, let me read books and then give my eggs. Tell us about your journey with this decision that you made and how you think it has impacted you as an individual.
Okay, yes. So my egg donation story, I was in Manchester for doing my master's degree. When in 2013, had summer started? Yes. So let's go back to the origin. I had a child when I was 24 years old. And I didn't want to have children. So that's the truth. Like, I've never wanted to have children. But I went through a natural progression of things, got married. I never wanted to get married, and I didn't want to have kids. How I found myself in that mess so early in my life. But for me, it has always been a thing of everything happens for a reason. So I honest, and I think I found the reason later on. I had to get married because I was from a traditional belief system of not, you can't have children when you're out of marriage. So I believe that God decided, or the universe, I'm not denominational, but I think the universe decided that this person, to be who she is, the world needs for her to have a child. And it has to happen much earlier, because I had things to do. So I think that happened because no sooner had I had my child, then a year later the marriage just ended. And we have a very good co-parenting relationship with the father, and then that went on. So after that, when I was like, oh, thank goodness, now I don't have to have a second child, because marriage, now I'm not married anymore. So now I'm not obligated to have more children. So let me just do what I need to be done. Let me get this reproductive system out of my body, so that nobody can confuse me ever again. So I went to doctors, but the doctors in Uganda refused to do for me any kind of procedure because all the procedures were permanent. And then I think I was last told to come back when I was 30 years old. And so there's two things. In Uganda, they don't let you have a permanent procedure unless you have a husband who can allow you to.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll say that again.
Wow.
In Uganda, as a woman, you do not have the choice over your reproductive system of whether to keep it or not, or whether you want to have children or not. When you go to the doctors, they'll ask you, bring the husband that you are with who has accepted you to make this life decision.
Oh my God.
The doctor I went to knew very well that I was divorced. I told him, no, what are you talking about? Then he started saying, but you have one child. That one I understood, because they also have some kind of moral code where they say you have to think for the person. And then precedents has also showed that women who had the procedures younger regretted it. They usually came back to ask for ways to reverse it. So that part I understood. But when I became much older, the guy really told me, Pumla, the truth is, we can't have this procedure done unless you're over a certain age or you have over a certain number of children, but your husband has to be present to make the decision for you. So when I got an opportunity in the UK, I said, this year will not pass until someone has removed whatever it is they are removing, tied tubes or cut them or whatever. I'm not having more children. So I started to do research around me, looking for a fertility center where they could do that procedure. So I found one that was a little close in Manchester. So I went there. Now I started to go there for consultation, to get more information, what they needed from me. So on my visit there, I think it was my second visit. My second visit there, I sat in the waiting room. And while I was in the waiting room, I listened. I was privy to a conversation between two elderly women. Their accents were West African. I can't for the life of God tell if it was Ghana or Nigerian or somewhere along there. But these were a little older ladies. If I could, I was 28 at the time, 27 at the time. Judging from their age, I would say maybe a little into late 30s or over 40. And they were speaking about how they had failed to get to have children. They were both married women, and they were talking about how they were not able to have children, and they were just like, consoling each other and saying, we will get these children. And then one of them told her that, but why haven't you considered the egg donation? Why don't you get eggs, like become an egg recipient? And then I heard from their conversation that the people who contribute, so they have, how you have a sperm bank, they also have an egg bank. And in the egg bank, they are mostly eggs of Caucasian descent. So, and at the end of the day, we all want children who look like us. We want, and even if the child doesn't look like us, at least let them let them be of my race. You can raise a Chinese child as an African, yes, but you have to be ready for the questions.
Yes.
Africans don't like people to enter their business. You find your two black people, black African of African descent, and you have a biracial child. People are going to ask questions. People are going to look and then you have to explain
all
yourself.
The time, yeah.
And then because again Africans are taught that if as a woman you can't do your obligatory duty to have children, you're not a woman. So it would mean that having to explain yourself would mean having to admit
that you
to
couldn't do
society's norms of I couldn't do what I'm supposed to do, what society deems as failure. And if you have that conditioned in your mind that me not having children is failure, you will never want people to know that you had children through a different process. And if you have a child that doesn't look like you, you have to explain, and then you have to admit, and then you have to be really secure in yourself not to care, which is not really what most we think we are traditional as Ugandans. West Africans are really traditional. So when I'm hearing them speak, my interest was really piqued by not mostly what they were saying, but I could feel a sense of yearning, a sense of something that you want so much but you can't have, of something that you think you have to have, like should be yours, but it's like God has decided, and they are very faithful people, they are very godly people. So I could even hear them like asking, but why me? Why would God do this to me? Why? What have we done? Like, these are women who hadn't reached the point of Munange. If God has willed, He has willed. It is what it is. But people in their journey of struggle and looking at why would God do this to me? Why would God curse me in this way? They touched my heart. To be honest, that conversation, and that's why I always say that everything happens for a reason. I was not supposed to have been in the UK. My first scholarship I got was actually supposed to be in the US, in the States. But then I got this scholarship, and it was a much better scholarship. And I realized in that moment, so I realized this after, but in that moment, I realized that I was meant to be seated in this chair at this time. So I entered the guy's office, and I asked the lady who was there. And I replayed the conversation I had, and she spoke, and she said, yes, she removed for me papers, books, looked at statistics, and said, Pumla, we don't have our waiting list for African moms, for women who are looking for children, is so long. There are many, but none of them will accept biracial eggs. They will accept, eggs of a different descent. We have an egg bank. We have eggs, that one we have, but it's mostly Caucasian. And also on top of that, because so what happens in the UK is different from the US. In the US, you're paid to donate your eggs. In the UK, you're not paid. You're given what they call like as an allowance, a stipend allowance, which is really supposed to help you in the time when you're doing the fertility treatment. You're expected to eat well. So and then also transport. You're expected to go have back and forth visits to and from the fertility center. So they give you a stipend of £700 to facilitate that. Now,
so that
if you know people,
so
people don't come, but also the type of people who come are really disparate people. They're like I don't want to say trash, but that's the term they use. That's really literally the term the guy used. She said they are not really the type of people. These are mostly users, abusers of substances who come for this this
Who just
thing.
want like a quick
Who
cash
just want
flow or
that
something.
quick money, yes. Because £700
yeah.
will do nothing for you in the UK, almost nothing.
Yeah.
It's really just
Yeah.
to get by. So they
that's
said
true.
that's the problem now with the Caucasian eggs as well. And so there was really that problem. So I asked, so what can I do? Is it something I can do? I had come here to get options on how I can tie my tubes or, an ABCDE. And then she said, yeah, if you really want to get on this list, we've been looking for donors, but we people don't heed our calls. So I asked her, so what do I need to do? She took me through everything I need to do. She took me through all the tests I needed to have. So I was like, I'm ready. If you can have me take the tests now, why not? Just small.
She must have been in shock.
Yeah, she kept looking at me like, you're a student here? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like that for her, in her mind, I think it was a quality issue, that we look for quality eggs, but we don't find them. Because people have other things to do. Like, you're not going to get eggs from Bill Gates, from Melinda Gates. What have you done? From Oprah. I think Oprah is going to spare her time to go and get there. No. You're going to get from people who are Avatarina Chabiakola, because it's a real process.
Yeah.
So when I did all the tests, I got a phone call within that same week, and they were telling me, yeah, you're ready to come in and start the fertility treatment. Wow. And then that's when it hit me. I was like, shit.
What did I get?
What did I just sign up for? What's this? I'm like, Pumla, I think your heart went ahead of you, which rarely happens, which never ever happens.
I was just about to ask. I thought you said you're not empathetic.
My head,
empathy.
And you see, I think I fight it for certain reasons, but I think deep down at my core, I want to help. And if I can help, like I always look at people from the side of, you've made bad decisions, but sometimes it's an issue of time and chance. And if you're in a category of time and chance, if honestly it is something about your system that you have no control over, but somebody external can do for you, then I tend to see that the differences very quickly. If I find that you have a case of maybe bad decisions or things, I tend not to look that side.
Yeah,
but I think
you're
I
responsible.
felt, like you be accountable for your shit, But a woman not able to have a child, I'm always like, okay, maybe it is what it's supposed to be, but let's try. Let's just give it a try. If this also fails, then let's look for other things. You can adopt, maybe you can, but not everyone is open to adoption. So I think I was also shocked by my response to the call, but I was like, you know what? The universe I'm here for a reason. Maybe this is what it is. I went, and then the lady pulled out a bag of injections. I've said it before. I have 2 fears in this world, 2 only. Number 1 is the praying mantis. The Kongola mabere is what they call it in Kiganda. Number 2, needles. I don't like sharp objects. When I see something sharp, I immediately feel the pain. I feel like I'm sliced, like I've been cut. I don't like pain. I have a low tolerance for pain. So the lady pulls out and says, now, Pumla, you have to go through an IVF fertility cycle where you have to inject yourself twice a day for 30 days in the stomach. Hey! Yeah.
That was a
I
lot.
said, what? She said, no, it's okay. Don't worry. If you have a problem with it, it's a very small needle. It goes in like, what? Yeah. I said, madam, is that the only way there are no pills I can...
Okay. I'm sorry. I have to cut this and let you come back next week to listen to the rest of the story. Pumla is going to talk more about these needles and how she had to do this twice, and she spends a lot of time talking about the journey that she took and how it has impacted the rest of her life. And she talks about her role as an economist and talks about her job working in a male-dominated space and how she sometimes might feel like she is an imposter. It's really hard for me to believe that, but yeah, you have to come back next week to hear her explain how she navigates that part of her life. Very, very grateful to you, Pumla. Thank you so much for honoring my invitation once again. Thank you so much for sharing this part of your life and for sharing so much of your journey. I do know that many people are being inspired. I know that you are being inspired, guys. So please tune in next week, same time, same place, to listen to more of Pumla's story. And see you next week. Bye bye. Love you. Please help me spread the word by sharing our episodes with your friends, family, and followers. Let's amplify the voices of women, break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create a network of support and empowerment. Together, we can bring about positive change and make this world a better place for all. This is She Center, the female podcast, where women's stories matter. I love you all. God bless.